to take just 2 minutes to share about the business that just launched. So, and also share how I see the combination to what we're doing here. And then I pass on to Peter. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing discussion. So I think I share already the concept I want to develop with this company. I see it as some kind of leverage of what we're doing here, but more for the profit sector. So I think that we can, the people who are interested, who are available, we can build a really strong network of implementation transformation specialists. I think this is not about getting commission on people, just making a sustainable ecosystem around implementation. I think our network is probably the best network on implementation in the world. Not
Yes.
just this group, but our individual networks. If they can see a benefit of joining, I thought, why not? We can connect thought leaders like Alex Osterwelde or Rita McGrath, and bring them on specific topics as part of our transformation projects. We can bring kids like Design for Change from Mark to bring the youth perspective. And then there's a strong AI component from people I've been talking on machine learning around implementation. And so this for me is what I like to build together with people who are interested. And it's not a new network of freelancers. I see it also as well, Christian, you're in Sweden and you want to leverage from the whole company as well. You want to sell big assignments in Scandinavia, you can do that, a bit of a franchise.
I work, there's no more borders with this remote work. So I work in Switzerland as well.
So you see, it's just the idea which is building now. First step is getting all the experts in the system. Then I'm talking to Rita McGrath and Alex Osterwald to be specific with Mark with Design for Change on the kids and artificial intelligence, working with people working for President Macron, who has an application to track all the projects in France. Yeah. So I think it can be an exciting journey, and we have the branch which is nonprofit, and that's this group. So we're still going to be offering nonprofit through this group, maybe a bit more formal. And I want to invest in ideas. So if we have a pool of experts and wants to put a bit of capital in ideas, startups, we can also do that. So it's a bit of a one-stop shop. Don't know if it's going to work, but at least the idea just came to reality, been in my mind for maybe 10 years, but now it's coming to reality. And I think we'll need to work for a long time, not just 60 or 65. So let's have fun.
Yes, exactly.
This.
Let's have fun. Life is short and can be long if you have fun.
And without too much on that, so I'll let you reflect a bit and give me thoughts, or by email, or we'll spend a bit of time next time. I want to focus now on the key guest today, which is Peter Monhaus, a good friend, my mentor the first year in the board of PMI. I learned a lot with Peter, and he's talking about a different topic in the world of change, which I think is converging very much into project and change. So I thought it could be a great learning for all of us. So Peter, welcome. Thank you for the time. You are a member of this group, and we look forward to your talk and then the input of all these amazing people.
Great. Thank you very much, Antonio. Welcome. I'm pleased to be here and sort of share some of my ideas. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, if I can figure out how
Peter, I made you the big boss now, so you need to accept people if join as well. Just the only thing.
Oh, my goodness. So I got to keep myself multitasking here.
Yeah. You want, Peter, you want the wingman to help you with the technical stuff, to just look at the chat and stuff like that? I'm
okay. I got a couple monitors going here. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Christian, for your help.
My friend, yes.
Well, we're all a team here together. Among friends, so this is very straightforward. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So as I talked and shared a year and a bit ago, I co-authored a book around product ownership and product management.
Awesome.
And that's where some of the thoughts are going to come from here. My co-author, Joanna Tivick, may be able to join me. She had another commitment today, so I know she was going to try to rearrange her schedule. So, so what I want to talk about is some of my thoughts here about the idea of how products and projects work together. So we'll talk a little bit about what customers want. We'll talk about the idea of a changing world. I'm sorry? No, we're good. So a little bit of changing world. Then I'm hoping if all goes well, I'll get through this in about 25 minutes or so or less. We'll go into breakout rooms. I've got a question for you to think about. And then we'll give you about 10 minutes or so to discuss that in the breakout room, come back, get your quick thoughts of that, and wrap up by the top of the hour. So that's what I've got in store for you for this next 50 minutes or so. Okay, so what do customers want? So when you think about Apple, what do you think about? Use the chat to just type in. What are you thinking about Apple when you think about Apple? Just put it in the chat. Don't be shy. So we've got great innovations. Thank you, Kristen. User experience, money. I mean, the money we have to spend for their products or the money that they're making, or both. The ecosystem that they have, more innovation, design, proprietary system. Yeah, both for the money question. Great products, good products, prestige, brand, service support. Yeah, great marketing, great design. Another one for brand, right? So it's an interesting list. And, you know, most of this comes back around, oh, thank you, Thomas, quality. That was the one that was missing. We'll come back and think about this. But, so we're all thinking about the product that we get from Apple. None of us talked about the product, or how about the project, or how Apple goes about producing these great products, right? The discussion was all focusing on the quality, reliability, the features, the value, right? The brand association, all about product, right? Nothing around, well, what methodology did Apple use? I don't know, do we really care, right? Do they worry about time, budget, and scope, the triple constraint? Don't know. Are their products aligned to strategy? Don't know. What are their constraints? Don't know. Do they have risks? I suspect. Are they really concerned about them? Don't know. Do they know how to manage risk? Right. So it's all about products, right? And that's what's got us thinking about, as project managers, we need to think about our products, right? Or what we're going to do. So when we think about products and we think about what projects, how they relate through this, right? The idea of the project, the product, and the customer. And of course, Yves Osterschreider in his Lean Business Canvas has come up with the product value proposition, which tries to encourage us to think about this idea of what our products are doing. How are they trying to solve customers' problems? Where does the value that we want to deliver to the customer? So we've got this idea that a product delivers value to customers, right? But projects are the part that deliver the product. So we have to have a project that will come in the form of delivering products that meet customer needs. That has to be done on a timeline or on a schedule. And that will be using team with a knowledge, not only a knowledge of how to execute the project, but also knowledge of what the product or service of that project is at the end, allowing the customer ultimately to be successful. Okay, so we've got projects are necessary to help deliver the product. But I think a more interesting idea is to think about the products and the customers. The fact that a product is there to help solve a customer problem, to address their gains and to also address their pains. And we have to think about what is a product or service that we are, and what are the features and attributes of that that will help deliver value to the customer. Now, in return, when the customer receives value, they will bring and give us back benefits, right? So we need to think about how that works. So in my simple little case here as showing a little example, right, of publishing a book. So, right, I identified when we self-published Gen P, New Generation of Product Owners. This is the book I co-authored with Joanna. Nothing like a blatant no, my getting tongue-tied. Nothing like blatant publicity for the book, right? So I am trying to provide value to my readers by helping them understand what the problem is of how products can help them address their needs as a product owner or as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to understand how they think about products and to help address the customer's needs, right? So I've got a book, so I've got to need customers who are trying to deliver value. The customers are going to give me feedback, right? They're going to give me feedback through comments that they make on Amazon. They're going to give me feedback through conversations that they have with me on email or with their other friends in their network. They're going to give me star ratings. And, you know, maybe they'll give me, and through that, I'll see them buying more books or not, right? So we have this cycle where I will deliver a product of some sort, right, to customers. They provide me feedback. I take that feedback, enhance my product, and provide it, go around in a circle. And this is the idea that we need to think about as when we're delivering a product is, are we addressing customer needs? Are we delivering value? And are we getting feedback? Okay, so what do customers want? They want value. Now let's go back and change and see, and go to the second part of what I'm going to look at here is this idea of how do we change and why things are struggling so much right now. So having said customers deliver value, we can see what happens if we don't deliver value, right? Products fail, customers fail. So on the slide here, I'm talking about 3 studies that the research for producing or creating the book I've come up with. So Clayton Christensen from Harvard published a very controversial paper talking about 80% of new consumer products fail in the first year. Incident Blackburn from the University of Toronto talked about 70 to 80% of new grocery products fail. And Christensen and Markham produced a study done more thoroughly, talked about 40% of products fail. So even at 40%, that's an absolutely very high number. And in today's age, organizations, whether we be for-profit or nonprofit, cannot afford to have that much failure. And of course, it's not only products that fail. As you can see from the icons here, we've had some very dramatic and once very large organizations. You know, Kodak was in the top 10 companies in the US back 30 years ago. Sears was a large US company. All have gone bankrupt now. BlackBerry, at one point, going back about 10, 15 years ago, was the largest company in Canada. You know, it's a mere shell of itself right now, struggling to stay on. And of course, Blockbuster has disappeared completely. With, you know, famous origin story about Netflix and Blockbuster. So we've seen some very dramatic, large, very successful companies that have just disappeared or are mere shells of themselves, largely because their products were not delivering value to customers. But what makes this so hard? Why are we facing these challenges today? I'll put to you that largely there are 3 main groups. You may argue about how I group them together, but 3 main groups of challenges that organizations of all shapes and sizes are facing, and specifically products are facing. So the first, in no particular order, didn't even put them in alphabetical order. Oh, well, we'll do the first one, diversity and diversification. So it used to be, as I was delivering a product, or developing a product or service, I knew where my customers were and I knew where my competitors were. They were in my neighborhood. They were around where I was physically located. Not anymore, right? My customers can be anywhere over the world. and around the world. I'm amazed at, putting things up on Amazon, putting my book up on Amazon, how many people are buying my product, right? Also, the fact that customers over the world, but also my competition, or people who are also thinking about product ownership and product management, are also located all over the world. And it's so easy now to reach out and talk to them with the technology. And we'll talk about technology next. So first is we have customers that have very different interests, very different needs. They're not homogeneous groups, and they're located in geographically diverse ways, which makes it challenging to think about identifying your customer problem, because your customers are very diverse, and they may all have slightly different problems. Second, and one would argue is one of the largest ones that we're facing, is this idea of disruptive technology that's come in and changed. And of course, the companies I showed beforehand, why did Sears run into problems? Because of Amazon, right? They didn't adapt the internet and be able to order on the internet and distribute on the internet as Amazon did. Yet, funny enough, Sears had a mail order catalog business for 100 years, that they knew how to distribute products, but they weren't able to change the technology. Right? Same with Blockbuster, right? There was a Blockbuster store at every corner, but people didn't want to rewind their tapes. They'd go and pick them up. Netflix figured that out, disrupted. But there's other examples. Airbnb, Uber have come along as well. So we have new technology that's entering, and arguably entering at a faster and faster pace. But it's not only the technology is enabling new business models. I mean, the argument that Uber made, that they were entering the market as a software company, not as a transportation company, right? They figured out how they didn't have to be burdened by having drivers that buy cars, have licenses. Right, they removed some of the overhead costs to have a model where their contractors brought themselves and their vehicle to do the driving, right? So made it a lot of different business models without the overheads of some of the traditional models. So we're getting new business models coming in, and they're coming in at a very rapid pace. They're changing all the time, which is also what's challenging for product owners and product managers, is to be able to adjust to this very quickly. Okay, so why now? Lots of discussion around this. I'll give you 4 points. I could probably talk for the next hour on all of them, but we'll go through as quickly as I can for each one of these. So first, this new renaissance. So a couple of folks wrote a book called The Age of Discovery, Navigating the Storms of Our Second Renaissance, Eden Golden and Chris Cartina, both working out of Oxford in England. And their argument is that the invention of the internet in 1992 has been as revolutionary as the invention of the printing press some 500 years beforehand. So prior to the printing press, if you wanted to record knowledge, you had to handwrite it. Very expensive, very limited. Most people got their knowledge by hearing it, by having their leaders talk to them about what was going on in their perspectives. As soon as the printing press came, it became a lot cheaper. You could mass produce books. If you include the invention of a library with this, it meant some people who read or learned how to read could get knowledge and could obtain knowledge. Right? And what happened after the printing press? We went into the 1500s, which was the age of the Renaissance, which is an area of huge disruption, but huge innovation and creativity as well, right? Which was enabled by suddenly information could be stored through books and could be transferred between different people and different generations without the use of storytelling, right? In a consistent way without that storytelling elaboration and changes. So it created a renaissance. So the argument that Ian and Chris make is with the invention of the internet, the barrier of actually writing and publishing a book was suddenly got removed. Information became a lot more easier. So with a book, it was easy to get the information. It was still hard to create it. With the internet, it's not, as we have seen for both good and bad ways. Won't go any further than that, of how anyone now can create information. Everyone can put it up on the internet and can actually start producing it and sharing the information, right? Or their view of the information, right? My ability to publish our book on Amazon, right, where I could write it, I could upload a file to Amazon and start selling it. I didn't have to go through a publisher. I didn't have to get permission from a publisher, right? I didn't have to get permission from anyone. I could just do it. Well, Amazon does do some checks, but it made it a lot more easier to get information, transfer information. So this has caused this, one of the things is what's happening, right, is that information is a lot more readily available than it ever was before. So the good news is we're getting a lot of creativity and innovation that's going on, just as it happened in the 1500s. Right? Last 100 years, so we're a little over 20 years in, so we've got another 80 years to go with this turmoil, and then we'll settle down, or not. Okay, next thing. Industrial age 4.0. So we think about the first industrial age, use of power, of water, and to help create machines and so on, and back in the 1700s. Then we went into starting of the tourism and the manufacturing of power to try to get the consistency and streamlining work. Then we moved into the third one, use of robots. Robotics started in the late 60s, putting some robots on manufacturing lines. And now we're into the fourth age, which is the network of things, where our machines are starting to talk to each other. Right, so the fact that you can, instead of Henry Ford in the Industrial Age 2.0, when he had his Model T, saying, you know, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. Now we can go to a car dealership and we can start picking up combinations of features we want in our car, and it will be made for us and shipped to us. Right, so the machines are able to connect with each other and understand and allow for much more customization. So we're seeing that happening. Next one up is the 4th-generation workforce. So there's always been multi-generations in the workforce, but rarely has there been 4 generations. As Antonio mentioned at the beginning, is that we're not starting, he and I, who are in the baby boom generation, are not stopping to work at 60 or 65. We see we got many more years to go. My dad, I remember my father he wanted to retire early. He retired at 57 because he didn't think he was going to see 70. He lived to be 88. So I'm thinking, why am I rushed to retire? But so this means we're in the workplace, the baby boomers, but we also have the Gen Zs coming into the workplace as well now, which is given 4th generation. I would argue, and again, a topic for more of a discussion later on, is that it's not that there's a wide age group in the workforce. It's that each generation, especially the millennials and the Gen Zs, are very different in their attitude towards work and their attitude in general. And from the baby boomers in particular. And that's making things more challenging in the workforce. And also, not only the workforce, but also in the consumers. The priorities for the millennials and the Gen Zs are very different than, I would say, the baby boomers. So I have to deal with that. An interesting thing, the last thing about point I have here is human evolution. I wouldn't say we're evolving as much as, well, we are, but as much as we're probably going back to our roots. So if we think about Taylorism, and to a large part of what project management is all about, it's been a focus here on the left side of the brain. Analytical, logic, control, order, predictability, right? Taylorism, consistency, right? This whole idea of, I want to get the same result every time, consistency, control in place. But we're seeing, because of some of these other things I've talked about, we don't need as much control anymore. We need to be more creative, right? We need to look about flow of work. We need to focus on quality. We need to have passion, right? And empowerment, more about the right side of the brain. Well, maybe I got them backwards. Anyway, but that's the idea. So these skills are more important to survive in today's world than than the other side, than the orange side I have here, what my left side. So we need to think about this and think about how traditionally we think about project management over here, yet customers are looking for ways to share, customers are looking for innovative ways to solve their problems, and we need to have more innovation over here for more of a product side to help solve customers' problems. Okay. So just one last thing I'm going to spend a couple of slides chatting about before we'll pose a question for you to think about is going back to this idea of strategy and implementing change. So organizations, in my opinion, do a reasonably good job of developing a strategy. And if they don't know how, there's lots of people that can help them out. But they do an absolutely terrible job of implementing it. And they're often faced with 5 key problems that they have. One is the organization culture. Remember Drucker saying that, culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch and dinner. So they don't have a culture of change. Organizations are resistant to change, and they don't allow this organization, culture will resist change, yet change has to be done. I mean, Kodak famously developed the digital camera. They just didn't know how to make money out of it, so they wouldn't change. And now they're bankrupt, right? You need to have an organization structure to focus on delivering products and delivering value to customers. So no matter what your strategy is, it's all going to be about creating new products or delivering products to different geographies or different ways. You need to be able to have the structure that can support that. Need to be focused. I mean, most of you who have worked in strategy know that organizations and senior leaders can get distracted by what consumers are doing, distracted by poor results, distracted by stakeholders or shareholders, distracted by government officials, not believing in their strategy and not following through. So you need to have the focus of using strategic goals and objectives. Not having that will be a challenge. You need to be able to execute, right? Do the right projects at the right time in the right way. You need to be able to have that to be able to deliver products. And I'm going to argue here that you've got to use an iterative approach. And finally, you need to understand that although you want to be focused on your strategy has to change and adapt to the changing environment and changing priorities. So you need to be able to deal with that. So I would encourage everyone to think about this idea of a strategy implementation circle, right? Starting off with the strategy itself, then going to the strategic objectives, which lead to strategic initiatives or projects by any other name, right? So projects, right? We always say project need to be supporting the organization's strategy aligned to the strategy of the organization. But it is the project that delivers the product, right? The products. And those products are what deliver value to customers, as I talked about earlier. The value, when customers get value, they will provide feedback to the organization. Feedback could be good feedback or bad feedback, doesn't matter. But that feedback is what's going to lead to the organization getting the benefits, which will allow it to either recognize it's achieving a strategy, or maybe it's not, it's missed the mark and it has to adjust, right? But either way, feedback is so important so that you can go back and then update your strategy and repeat the circle again. And I think many organizations don't necessarily understand the linkages between the fact projects deliver products, products deliver value to customers is what gets your benefits and through feedback. And you have to keep listening to what your customers are saying so that you can then update and modify your strategy accordingly. Okay, questions or comments? Okay, so thank you, Christian. So what we need to, Maria, you talked about people being embedded in each part. Yes, absolutely. You're doing this all through people as well, right? Your customers are people and dealing with customers. So Thank you very much for that comment as well. Okay, yes, I see a couple there about people. Right, absolutely, right? And that's what I guess goes without saying, although I didn't say it, so good point. So the Boston Consulting Group has this very traditional product life cycle where you start off with a bunch of products that you're trying to find as question marks to introduce. Some of them will be successful in the market and find their way. So these become your stars, which you will then grow to the point where they hit their market saturation, where you will then look at focusing on reducing costs in order to maximize profit, to then allow you to invest in future question marks. And then at the end of their life, they start falling off as not being delivering as much value. They don't make as much money, and ultimately they will end up declining, right? So the idea that many organizations have is they let this happen. And one of the things I'm trying to argue is that if you're worrying about your product through the full life cycle, you want to try to extend this curve by continuously adding value. So in our book, we argue that you want to use an iterative product development approach where you look at the customer problem, you validate it, and then you continuously execute it. So we'll go into a little bit more detail of this. So you look at the customer problem, come up with an idea, think about the value you're going to deliver, and then come up with possible solutions, right? Your solution that you will select will ultimately lead to a minimum viable product, right? So to do that, you're going to may have to check to make sure your minimum viable product is a market fit. You may use proof of concepts and prototypes to ensure that it will work. Right? As you do that, you get feedback you can put in a product backlog, and then you move into an agile execution where you're going to be continuously updating your product based on feedback that you get from the backlog, picking the most valuable ones, right? Defining it, building it, releasing it to the market, get more feedback, and continue around through this cycle. Okay. So the idea is that you want to build in this idea of getting feedback from customers. I should have brought in the slide ahead where you get the feedback coming in so that you can make sure you're delivering value all the time and thus extending the product life cycle. Okay, so yes, it does. Let me, I see the comment here from Christian. So just to show how this works, think about Zappos, right? So Zappos is a shoe company founded in New York, right? The fellow back in the 90s.
It could be nice and dark down here.
No, I need the outside lights. I just don't need the inside lights. It's too bright.
Okay, Kimberly, if you could just, well, I've got the power. I can mute you. There we go. Okay. So what was the founder of Zappos? Forgot his name. Anyway, he came up with this idea that people could buy shoes online. Now, as Christian mentioned, this required a huge change in people's behavior because I don't want to buy shoes online. I want to try them on, walk around with them and so on. So he thought, people are busy. They don't have time to go to a shoe store and wait for a salesperson to come out and so on. So they had this idea that, let me try something. So he put up a very basic website and said, we'll ship you a pair of shoes. If you don't like them, you can send them back to me, right? So his value he was trying to give to people, you're busy, you don't have time to go to the store, I'm going to save you time, right? So he created shoesite.com was the site he created, and he gave this idea of having return shoes with no questions asked. Now, how did he provide and fulfill the orders for his customers? Well, he walked down the street to his local shoe store and bought the shoes there, came back and sent them off to his customers for them. So he was using his time. He checked with the shoe store. He very famously asked them how much time he had to return the shoes, and they said 30 days. He asked them, did they mind if he resold the shoes after he bought them? They said they don't really care. So he took pictures of the shoes that were in the store and put them online. Very basic, nothing very fancy. But that was his prototype, right? And he found out that people bought shoes. They liked the market, they bought shoes, it was a success. So he moved on, and then he started to make arrangements with shoe manufacturers. So he got his own supplies, shoes coming in, and he started to get more people and build out a call center, but he added that based on what he saw the market wants, right? But it does work on how you're trying to change behavior. And to your point is that this is why we need to understand how the product is addressing a customer's problem, how it's addressing their pains, then they're going to be more, or achieving their gains, then they're going to be more willing to change their behavior. Okay, so what's the conclusion I have here? Products, so what do customers want? Products that deliver value continuously. Well, maybe not every minute, but certainly they see a continuous investment in your product. So organizations that view projects as creating a product and then they throw the product over the wall and don't worry about it, they're not going to be successful. They're going to be the next taxi cab industry, the next Kodak, the next Sears, the next Blockbuster, because they're not understanding what problems the customers have and how to solve them and how new technology can solve them. Okay, so Antonio, where were we when this picture was taken?
Oh, wow. I think that's
There's
Vancouver.
Antonio, for those who don't recognize him. Here I am. Where were we?
In Vancouver.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So this is a picture, oops, of beautiful Vancouver. Well, beautiful Vancouver. It rains a lot in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately. Okay. So what I like to do is to put you in a breakout room and just spend about 10 minutes talking about, or less. Now we'll go with 10 minutes, talking about this question. Will product managers replace project managers?
Wow.
Or thinking more, I put up the picture from Antonio and I when we were on the board, because we talked about on the board about challenges to the profession of project managers. Is it going to be a change manager? Was it going to be business analyst? Well, is it going to be a product manager? Because if we, as I'm arguing in this presentation, we should be looking at doing continuous delivery of value, small projects. So where's the role for the project manager? Is it not really a product manager or not? So think about that. Talk about this idea of how projects and products should work together. I've done a presentation on projectmanagement.com about products being the fourth P of project management, right? Projects, programs, portfolios, and products. So think about that and how, as your organization, how delivering projects can help your organization deliver strategy if you continue to invest in your products and keep managing the products. Okay, Antonio, how many breakout rooms do you recommend we should create here?
Peter, 4. I would say we're about 20.
Okay. So I'm going to randomly create 4 breakout rooms. Going to do automatically. We'll give you a little under 10 minutes. I want to get back here about 8 minutes to the top of the hour to give you, just to do some quick feedback of what you've come up with. Okay, have fun. Back, which is great. So thank you very much. I certainly was able to drop in, heard some great discussions going on. So that's great. Let's get the last couple of people coming back here. Hard to know. Okay. So effort of time here to get done by the top of the hour. So if you could just give a 30-second tweet about what sort of key thought came out from each of your groups. We'll just go through the groups. So we'll start off with Antonio's group. I don't know whether Antonio is someone from there. Just a very quick summary of what came out.
It's Anibal who is our spokesperson.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah. So the outcome of our discussion was that, yeah, the gap between the product manager and the project manager is closing and very much. And either we see that the product manager have to be much stronger and learn much more of project manager, or the other way, the project manager has to become much more as a life cycle manager, a product manager, and taking over some of this responsibility. If you see it on a general perspective, it also depends on the size of the product and the project, because otherwise we are at the point where it is becoming always the same person fulfilling both roles. So, and that just make sure that this gap is so small nowadays that either or can take over. And
Great,
it works.
Great, thank you, Annabelle. So Christian's group, so Christian or someone else in the group?
Yeah, I spoke a lot, I think. Let's take someone else. What about Maria? You haven't spoken for a long time.
Okay, I think we came somehow with a conclusion with Yolanda exposition that perhaps there is no replacement of both roles, but getting together. I mean, like you said, closing also the gap between product and project managers, but not replacing. And the reason why is because it depends on the project, the organization, and also we need to take into consideration that there are two types of focus. But what we see is that there is a need to collaborate between these two roles, okay? And the focus on being efficient in the core and being innovative on the side of the product. So it's not a replacement, but perhaps it's getting closer and working in a collaborative way.
Well, I would comment this. It's definitely depending on which sector you're looking at.
Yeah. And depending on the project or an organization.
Exactly. That's what we agreed, Maria. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
In this case, if it's in the services sector, for instance, in this case, sorry to say, but the project manager is not dead, but it's being replaced by Scrum Master. If you look at SAFe, for instance, and the product owner has a really essential role, and that is starting with design thinking from a customer experience perspective. That is really central in agile transformation.
Thank you, Christian. Okay, moving on to Philip and Philip's group. I don't know who from that group.
Okay, I'll quickly. Echoing what the group 2 have just said, I think we were a little bit skeptical in that we saw that project managers are very much business specific. They need to know the business, they need to know their product, where project managers are more universal. That there is a need for systems thinking on the part of both people. There's a huge amount of complexity and interaction, and it's very much a function of the organization culture. And that what we're seeing because of the pandemic is dramatic changes of culture where we don't know where it's going. You know, remote working is really shaking up organizations.
Okay, thank you. And time's not my friend here, so moving on to the last group. Mark, your group.
Anna, would you like to go?
Sorry, I think what we were discussing were basically the same thing as the other groups. There are two roles, and Mark brought the idea of the two sides of the brain where they need to be really very connected. We recognize that there are different roles. They are both needed, but the connection between them has to be much stronger than it used to be to make sure we are effective. Is that about right, Mark?
That's good. The only thing that occurred to me after that is that we are now moving into the symbiosis with technology. So both of those roles will take on technological sides as well.
Right, great. Thank you. A good point. Thank you. So good summary. Thank you very much for your thoughts. So just my last slide here. So again, thank you for your time and your contribution. Hope you found this interesting. Find more on my website, www.newgenp.com. Feel free to follow up with me at peter@newgenp.com. So thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks, I guess.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Peter.
Thank you,
That's
Peter.
excellent.
Thank you, Antonio.
Well
Thank you,
done.
Antonio.
Excellent.
I love this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
blessed
Nice
day.
evening. Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye, everyone.